Usher didn't just make it, he was manufactured. And the deeper you look, the more the story unravels. Because behind the iconic falsetto, the tailored suits, and the seductive slow jams is a kid who was pushed, pulled, and packaged by people who had everything to gain from his fame. At just 13 years old, Usher was taken across state lines, sent to live with Diddy. Yes, that Diddy, who at the time was a 21-year-old industry kingpin building his own empire. And not only was Usher allegedly living in Diddy's mansion, Diddy once claimed he had legal guardianship over him. Flavor camp, that's what they called it. A so-called mentorship experience that today sounds more like a cautionary tale wrapped in champagne-soaked celebrity gossip. And Usher? He's admitted that after living with Diddy, he hasn't slept right since. But it doesn't stop there. There are two different stories about how Usher got signed. His mother claims he was discovered at talent shows, but an ex-bandmate from his childhood group, he says Usher's mom schemed behind the group's back to get her son solo, shopped demo tapes to Babyface through janitors, and lied to executives just to cut everyone else out. Oh, and we're just getting warmed up, because before the Diamond Records, the Super Bowl halftime show, and the polished Vegas residency, Usher was a terrified teenager on the verge of losing his voice, his deal, and his identity. And what came next? Industry manipulation, public lawsuits, herpes allegations, family fallout, and a mentorship that raises way more questions than it answers. So no, Usher's rise wasn't just talent. It was strategy. It was pressure. And it might have been grooming. Let's talk about it. Let's be honest. If you grew up in the late 90s or early 2000s, Usher was everywhere. He was that guy. The voice, the absolute. The slow-motion body rolls in every music video. He was the safe sex symbol your mom didn't mind playing on the radio. Clean-cut, polished, marketable. You could take him home to meet the parents or fantasize about sneaking out the window with him. That was his whole brand. The music was sexy, sure, but never too explicit. The interviews, always respectful. The performances, sensual but somehow still safe enough for the VMAs. Usher was the perfect pop R&B hybrid at a time when black male artists were being boxed into stereotypes, either the hardcore thug or the gospel-singing saint. Usher didn't fit either. He was a product, and the product worked. This man was out here moonwalking across global stages while still giving humble Southern mama's boy energy in interviews. He was discovered young, tutored by legends, just trying to make his mama proud. That's what we were told. But now that we've peeled back the curtain, that image looks a little too perfect because the truth is, Usher's clean image was curated down to the last detail. From his clothes to his relationships to the songs he was allowed to sing. Someone else was always pulling the strings. He wasn't just a breakout artist. He was a case study in star manufacturing. And when you start connecting the dots, flavor camp, conflicting origin stories, legal guardianship claims, voice loss threats, you start to realize this wasn't the story of a prodigy rising on talent alone. It was the story of a system that knew how to mold boys into pop stars, sell them to teenage girls, and cash in before they ever understood the price of fame. So how did we fall for it? Easy, because we wanted to. Usher was the fantasy, but that fantasy came with a cost, and the real story starts with a lie. Okay, so here's where things start to get messy. If you ask Usher or his mom, the story goes like this. Usher was just a gifted kid from Chattanooga, Tennessee, singing in church, entering talent shows in Atlanta, and eventually catching the eye of an industry exec at just the right moment. A sweet Southern success story, nothing shady. But then, Anthony Bird entered the chat. Anthony wasn't just anybody. He was one of Usher's childhood bandmates in the anti-drug youth group New Beginning, a local group that performed around schools and churches to keep kids out of trouble. And according to him, the Usher origin story you think you know, total revisionist history. Because according to Anthony, Usher didn't just outgrow the group or get discovered on his own. His mom, Janetta Patton, allegedly schemed to push Usher as the frontman, went behind the group's back, and was shopping demo tapes to record labels without the rest of them even knowing. Oh, and remember that story about how Usher just happened to audition for L.A. Reid after winning talent shows? Anthony says Janetta literally handed their group's demo to a janitor in the same building as Babyface's label and told him to pass it upstairs. That tape got heard and boom, Usher gets called in. But not the group, just Usher. Even the group's outfits had drama. Janetta supposedly intentionally bought Usher a white shirt while everyone else was wearing purple, just to make him stand out in photos. She was plotting a solo career before anyone else knew it. Now ask yourself, if her son was just a normal, sweet 12-year-old, why was she already breaking up a signed group deal, sneaking tapes into executives' hands, and feeding a solo image to the industry before anyone else even had a chance? And yet, when Usher tells the story, it's all neat and sanitized. He entered a talent show, someone recognized him, and magically, Babyface and L.A. Reid just happened to fall in love with his voice. Make it make sense, because either he was plucked out of obscurity like a fairy tale, or his mom was playing chess while everyone else was playing checkers. The truth probably lives somewhere in the middle. But what's clear is this: the industry didn't just find Usher, he was presented to them. And the packaging had been in the works long before any spotlight showed up. And once the industry took the bait, they took it all the way. Here's where things stop sounding like a music career and start sounding like a documentary with a trigger warning. So Usher, barely a teenager, gets his record deal with Layface Records. But just as things are taking off, puberty hits like a freight train. His voice starts cracking, acne flares up, and suddenly, the golden child is at risk of being dropped from the label before his debut album even comes out. What did L.A. Reid do? Offer vocal coaching? Some time off? Nope. He sent 13-year-old Usher to Flavor Camp, also known as Diddy's house. Let that sink in. A child artist, sent across state lines, to live, not visit, but live with a 21-year-old Sean Puffy Combs, who at the time was running Bad Boy Records and partying like it was Studio 54 every night. And it wasn't just a mentorship situation. Diddy has literally said on video, "I had legal guardianship of Usher. When he did his first album, he was signed to me." Wait, what? Legal guardianship. That's not mentorship. That's parental level control. If that's true, that means contracts, court filings, paperwork. But if you try to find those documents, good luck. They're nowhere to be found publicly. And Usher himself? He's admitted the experience changed him. Not in a "this inspired my artistry" kind of way. In a "I haven't been able to sleep since" kind of way. Being around that man, Puff, that changed me. I don't sleep to this day. I got that from him. That's not normal. That's not healthy. That's not how mentorship is supposed to work. Usher has even described being exposed to a hypersexualized environment, saying doors would open to rooms full of people, doing things a 13-year-old had no business seeing. He talked about parties, alcohol, women, and chaos. And if you thought this was just rumors, nah. He said it himself in a 2004 Rolling Stone interview. "Puff introduced me to a totally different set of sex." What was going on in that house? And why would L.A. Reid, a major label executive, send a child artist into that environment as part of his development? Look, call it what you want. Flavor camp, artist boot camp, mentorship, but what it sounds like is conditioning. A vulnerable teenager, fresh out of middle school, suddenly living with the king of bad boy nightlife, getting shaped, molded, groomed, not just musically, but mentally and emotionally. And let's not forget the eeriest part of all, Diddy's infamous parties, the late nights, the people who were there, and the things Usher saw but didn't fully understand. This isn't some fan theory. These are direct quotes. The question is, why did everyone look the other way? And more importantly, how many others were sent through this exact same system? Because once Usher came out of that camp, he wasn't a kid anymore. He was a product, and he was ready to sell. Now picture this. You're 14 years old. You just signed your first major record deal. You're working with some of the biggest names in music. And then, your voice disappears. That's exactly what happened to Usher. Right as he was gearing up to record his debut album, puberty hit him like a brick wall. His vocals cracked, his confidence tanked, and his skin broke out in a way that reportedly made L.A. Reid question whether he was even marketable anymore. Yes, acne and voice changes almost derailed his entire career. Suddenly, this golden child LaFace just invested in was looking less like the next Michael Jackson and more like a liability. And instead of nurturing him through it, they almost cut him loose. In a Rolling Stone interview years later, Usher said the label stopped answering his calls. He felt rejected, confused, angry. One night, he was so worked up that he punched a wall and literally ran for 30 minutes straight, trying to outrun the anxiety and betrayal. His quote, How can you embrace me and then all of a sudden not even return my phone calls? That's how quickly the music industry can turn on you. 1 minute you're the next big thing. The next minute your balls drop, your voice squeaks, and you're being ghosted by the same execs who told you you were special. But here's where it gets twisted. Instead of offering support, L.A. Reid gave him one option. If he wanted to keep his deal, he had to go to Diddy. Yep, that's how we ended up with Flavor Camp. It wasn't some friendly mentorship. It was a condition of staying signed. That means Usher was being emotionally broken down and strategically rebuilt before he could even legally drive a car. The pressure wasn't just about making a hit, it was about survival. Prove yourself or get dropped. And when Usher did come back from Diddy's house, he was different, confident, flashier, more industry. The innocence was gone, but he had learned how to sell sex, stage presence, and star power, even if it meant suppressing his own discomfort to do it. Then finally, in 1994, his debut self-titled album dropped. Usher was just 16. The album was co-executive produced by Diddy himself, and it was clear, this wasn't the church kid from Chattanooga anymore. And while critics panned it for being too mature, too sexual for someone so young, looking back now, that's the part that's most disturbing, because the reason it sounded so adult is simple. It was made by adults. Adults who designed Usher to sell fantasy, not reality. And the industry didn't care that his childhood had just become a marketing strategy. What they did care about was whether he could make them money. And from the looks of it, he did. But the cost? That part is still adding up. If Usher's rise was shaped by the industry, then his fall from grace was broadcast by the internet. In 2017, Usher went from smooth R&B legend to tabloid punchline overnight because of herpes. Yep, the same man who sang Nice and Slow was now being dragged, loudly, for allegedly spreading an STD to multiple partners without disclosure. At first, it was just one woman. She claimed Usher infected her after telling her he was clean. Then the story escalated. Suddenly, 3 more accusers came forward. 2 women and a man. Yes, a man. By then, this wasn't just scandal. It was spectacle. People weren't just gossiping. They were memeing. Late-night hosts were joking. And Twitter ate him alive. One woman, Quantasia Sharpton, even held a televised press conference, claiming she and Usher had relations on her 19th birthday at a hotel after a concert with no mention of any risk. And the kicker? She said she didn't even get herpes. She was suing for exposure. By the time the dust settled, it was clear this wasn't going away quietly. Court documents leaked, rumors swirled about a previous settlement Usher had allegedly paid back in 2012, $1.1 million to a stylist who claimed the same thing. And while Usher never publicly confirmed it, the documents were, let's just say, convincing. And yet, through all of this, he stayed silent. No statement, no press tour, no tearful interview, just radio silence and some carefully worded legal filings. And maybe that was strategic. Maybe he thought ignoring it would make it go away. But it didn't, because silence only fueled the speculation. Was it true? Was there a cover-up? And why was someone who built his entire image on seduction and trust suddenly facing accusations of betrayal? And let's not forget what this meant for his legacy. Usher had always been the guy who was smooth, sexy, and clean-cut. He sold intimacy. Now, that same image became his liability. People were asking, how many people did he put at risk? And did his partners even know? And the fact that one of the plaintiffs was a man only added another layer of tabloid hysteria. In the R&B world, especially for a black male artist, that kind of speculation is career quicksand. Was it true? Was it false? We may never know the full truth. What we do know is this. Usher settled some of those cases privately. He paid. He moved on. But the reputation damage? That stayed. Because even if the lawsuits disappeared, the internet never forgets. And the man who once sold vulnerability with a falsetto now had to navigate the public with a permanent asterisk beside his name. What's worse, the industry didn't rally around him. He wasn't canceled, but he wasn't protected either. It was as if the same machine that built him was finally done with him. Now, if you thought Usher's biggest drama came from the industry, think again. Because for almost 2 decades, the most complicated and explosive relationship in his life wasn't with Diddy, the label, or even his exes. It was with his own mother. Janetta Patton wasn't just Usher's mom. She was also his manager, talent scout, PR fixer, bodyguard, vocal coach, and gatekeeper. From day one, she orchestrated every move, every deal, every interview. She was the original momager before Kris Jenner made it trendy. But while Janetta loved her son, let's not pretend she wasn't playing the game. She moved the family to Atlanta to chase music dreams. She pulled Usher out of his first group to focus on his solo career. She allegedly schemed behind other parents' backs to get him signed. And when puberty hit and labels backed off, she handed her child over to Puff Daddy like it was part of the plan. Fast forward to 2010, and Usher fires her. Yep, after 17 years of loyalty, grind, and platinum plaques, he cut her loose. Now, to be fair, he didn't say it like that. In interviews, Usher softened it by saying they had differences of opinion, that it was about him becoming a man, that it wasn't personal. But behind the scenes, it was tense. Even as early as 2004, during a Rolling Stone interview, Usher was already going toe-to-toe with Janetta over career decisions. He was in the car with a reporter when he called her on speakerphone and snapped. He accused her of playing games, said she didn't consult him about an award show appearance, and ended the call by saying, "You're not thinking of what's good for Usher, strategic moves, deliberate movement. I'm not going to do it. I'm just not." Whew. So much for yes, ma'am. Janetta, for her part, always stood firm that she was the reason he made it. She once said, "People judge me by how I did my job. I protected my son and my artist. I knew when to be a mother. I knew when to be a manager." But let's be real. It's hard to switch those roles when your child is also your business. And the deeper you go, the more it feels like this wasn't just about contracts or calendars. This was about control. Because Janetta was there when he was discovered. She was there when he lost his voice. She was there when he was sent to live with Diddy. And if any of that ended up being traumatizing, well, she wasn't just a witness. She was part of the machine. So when Usher dropped her in 2010, it wasn't just a management decision. It was a breakup with the only person who had ever truly run his life. And what's wild is, after firing her, Usher went on to launch his own artists, his own label, and eventually co-managed Justin Bieber into superstardom. So was it freedom? Or was it just him becoming the very thing he tried to escape? One thing's for sure, his mom wasn't the only one cut out of the picture. The more Usher matured, the more people disappeared. The question is, was that growth or was it damage control? If Usher was the blueprint, then Justin Bieber was the sequel. After firing his mom as manager and stepping fully into his grown man era, Usher did what so many stars eventually do. He moved from talent to talent scout. But instead of discovering someone in a smoky bar or a church choir, Usher found the next global pop phenomenon on YouTube. Enter a mop-haired Canadian tween with a falsetto and a webcam. According to the official story, Scooter Braun stumbled across 13-year-old Justin Bieber's homemade videos and flew him to Atlanta. And coincidentally, Usher just so happened to be in the studio that day when Justin walked in. Even more coincidentally, Justin was singing Usher's own song, "You Got It Bad." Sounds cute, right? Too cute, because in reality, that chance encounter was probably the most strategic setup of Usher's career. Usher didn't just shake Justin's hand and walk away. He co-founded a joint venture, RBMG Records, specifically to launch Bieber. He sat in on studio sessions, introduced him to L.A. Reid, again, helped him sign with Island Def Jam, and walked him through the exact same media machine that made him a teen idol years earlier. And that's where the deja vu kicks in. Justin's journey, almost a carbon copy of Usher's, discovered before his voice matured, marketed as the sweet, safe, soulful kid next door, surrounded by grown adults with a financial stake in his innocence, rushed into global fame before he knew what normal even felt like. Sound familiar? The key difference? Justin talked about it, loudly. He admitted early fame nearly destroyed him. "It can completely destroy a human being, and it almost did," he once said. "I got to a point that was unreturnable, and you could see it. The breakdowns, the outbursts, the public spirals. It was like watching Usher's internal struggles play out again, but this time in 4K. So the question is, did Usher learn from his own trauma or just pass it down? Because while he helped Bieber land hits and headlines, he also helped him step straight into the machine. The press junkets, the world tours, the toxic expectations. The same system that nearly broke him as a kid was now being repackaged and handed off, with Usher as the face of mentorship. And the irony? Justin Bieber's career eclipsed Usher's in record time. Sold-out arenas, Billboard #8 second, screaming fans across every continent. But with all that success came scandal after scandal. DUIs, arrests, meltdowns, rehab. It's like Usher taught him how to sing, but didn't teach him how to survive. And let's be real, Usher's relationship with Justin hasn't been without tension. As Bieber's scandals piled up, Usher distanced himself, quietly, strategically. You stopped seeing them together. The mentorship slowly dissolved. Maybe Usher saw too much of himself in Justin. Or maybe he saw what happens when you become the very system that exploited you. Because grooming doesn't always look like evil men in suits. Sometimes it looks like a child star turned exec who never got to heal, trying to manufacture the next him. And as we've seen with both of them, once the machine gets you, it doesn't let go easy. So, what will Usher be remembered for? The hits? No question. Nice and Slow, You Make Me Wanna, Confessions, yeah, he dominated an entire era of R&B. He defined the slow jam, moonwalked across stages with MJ precision, and sold over 80 million records worldwide. He earned the legend status. That's not up for debate. But legacy? Legacy is never just about the music. Usher will also be remembered for being the kid with the golden voice who had his childhood taken and repackaged into something profitable. A teen who was handed over to the wolves of the music industry, told to perform, please, and sell sex before he was even old enough to understand it. He'll be remembered for the scandals, the herpes lawsuits, the headlines that never fully went away, the awkward silence that followed, the tension with his mom, the mentor who became too controlling, and the superstar he helped build, Justin Bieber, who ended up publicly collapsing under the same pressure Usher once faced privately. He'll be remembered for resilience too, because somehow he survived it. He went from child star to adult icon to comeback king, a Vegas residency, a Super Bowl halftime show, and now another record label, another reinvention, another chapter. But the truth? The polished Usher you see on stage isn't the whole story. Behind the falsetto is a boy who tried to run away before the fame ever started. A boy who was told he had no choice but to go to flavor camp. A boy who watched doors open to grown men and grown women doing things he didn't understand. A boy who saw too much, too soon, and kept smiling through it because the checks had already cleared. And even now, as a grown man, a father, a mogul, you get the sense that part of him is still that scared kid. Still trying to make sense of what happened, still not sleeping, still carrying secrets. So when people say Usher will go down as one of the greatest R&B artists of all time, they're right. But the full truth? He'll also go down as one of the most groomed, controlled, and molded artists of his generation. Someone who learned to play the game so well, he started recruiting players of his own. Usher Raymond IV, legend, icon, survivor, and maybe a cautionary tale. Because if the industry can do that to someone that talented, what do you think they're doing to everyone else?